Hello, BookTube. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Juan. I am Just One Reader, your favorite Mexican booktuber who reads in English. And I am here with my reading wrap-up for the month of August. So I have 6 books to share with you, some of them quite successful, some of them not quite. Let's jump right in. The first book that I completed in August was Totem Pole by Sanford Friedman. This is a coming-of-age gay novel. It was written in 1961, and it kind of is a historical novel because it actually takes place, well, it starts at the early 20th century, I think, and then it sort of just goes on until, I think, the war. And this is the story of one man's life. It's a Bildungsroman. Like I said, it focuses on a gay character, and we get to see each chapter focusing on a stage in this man's life. And just conceptually and structurally, this book should have been for me. By the way, this is a book that I had never heard of until Leo from A Little Book Life recommended it to me, because I think it was recommended to him by Rick McDonnell. And both of these guys, Rick, Leo, they usually have some amazing recommendations. However, this book was really not for me. Actually, I should say it was for me on paper. Like, the concept and the structure that I just mentioned to you, it should have been my favorite book of the year. No, this book was insufferable, honestly. Like, I feel so bad saying that because, it's a recommendation from a very dear friend, but I just have to come clean and say it. I did not enjoy the execution of this book. And it's a personal thing, A book can be great as an idea, as a concept, but if you don't like the way it's written, it can really, really get on your nerves. And this one did. Essentially, I thought the book managed to capture some of the anxieties and horrors, but also joys of the gay coming-of-age experience in a very good, interesting, and also emotionally accurate way. And I really, really liked that. That's it. That's the only thing that I liked about the book. I didn't really care for the character. I didn't really care for any of the supporting cast of characters either. I sort of found the book overall to be incredibly unintelligent, which sounds like horrible criticism from me. It just sounds awful to say that a book was not clever, but it really, really, really wanted to be very clever. Like, I could see the author and the book itself wanting to be super Freudian, super psychoanalytical, and super clever, and I just found all those 3 things to be not true. Look, I am a psychoanalyst myself. Actually, did you know, I think I might be one of the 10 youngest psychoanalysts worldwide, certified psychoanalysts, members of the IPA, which is the International Psychoanalytical Association. Well, I just became a member a few years back, and I am one of the youngest members of that proud organization. So look, as a real modern contemporary psychoanalyst, I can tell you this book wants to feel very clever, but there's very little emotional truth in here, and that sounds very harsh. But yeah, I just didn't like it. I just felt like it was very on the nose, incredibly corny and sentimental, and I never like books that make me feel like I'm being played, or like the author is trying to play me or do something to me, Like, it was just so on the nose. I'm going to read out loud to you just a few examples of the writing which I found atrociously bad. Like, for example, the next excerpt is an example of very on-the-nose, sentimental writing. It goes like this. For the first time in his life, Stephen realized how much he really loved his brother. After all, who else could he turn to now that Clary and Mommy were gone? Who else did he know in this black and endless tunnel? Roger, too, felt an intimation of the same sentiment. Are you kidding me? Give me a fucking break. Come on, just fuck you. Oh. And then here I have another example of another horrible example of writing. A lot of minutia, a lot of detail that it just bogs everything down. It takes away the magic. It goes like this. Leaning against the cold wall, she stared out one of the windows that overlooked Riverside Drive 12 stories below. Like, what do I care? The Hudson was clogged with large chunks of free-floating ice that looked like garbage. From the comfort and security of her Wedgwood blue boudoir, she surveyed the irregular rows of clapboard and tar paper shacks that uglified and obscured the riverbank. Hoovervilles. Why on earth did they call them that? What had Mr. Roosevelt done to make things any better? Nothing. No, the Depression was still on. Blah, blah, blah. It just goes on and on like that. It's so unending. Oh, I just know. This book, look, it wasn't horrible. For me, it kind of was because of the grating writing style that really got on my nerves. But look, this book could be for you if you enjoy that kind of writing and if you want to read a book with this premise. Go ahead and be my guest. Be our guest. Be our guest. Put our service to the test. But not for me. Alas, not for me. I gave this book 2.5 stars. The next book, however, that I read was The Rehearsal by Eleanor Catton, and this book wins the prize for the most surprising, positively surprising book, the most positive surprise of 2023 so far. This book was incredible. I don't even want to say what it's about. I just want all of you to go and find a copy of this book and give it a go. It's a very short read. It's only like 350 pages. No, 300 pages. So it's a very short novel, and it just sort of flies by. It has an incredible sense of pace, really good rhythm. Look, Eleanor Catton is the author of The Luminaries, which is this beloved like booktube darling book, and I liked The Luminaries well enough when I read it like 10 years ago or something like that. But this book is so much better, and it's her debut novel. Did you know that? Like, a debut novel can be better than the follow-up novel, which won the Man Booker Prize. This was a finalist for the Man Booker Prize, I think, or was it? Well, I don't remember. Don't quote me on that. But anyway, this book was incredible. It has so many elements that I didn't know it had. And discovering the book, the plot of the book is fairly simple. It's about a sex scandal that happens at this school in Canada, but it really isn't. The book itself and the glory of this book, what makes it great, is not about that. It's not the story or the plot or even the characters. It's the way that it's told. It's the way that it's so creative and inventive in its use of language and form and structure, and the storytelling aspect of it is just great. It's a book that hooks you immediately from chapter 1, and it has a lot of surprises. It has a lot of twists, but it's not like a thriller, although it does feel sometimes like a thriller now that I think of it. Anyway, the way that this book turns narrative on its head was incredible. The book plays with a lot of themes of like fiction and truth and loyalty and art and community and relationships between parents and children and school kind of relationships, like teachers and students. And it's just such a great book. I am giving it 4 stars right now, but I am pretty sure this book will be a favorite at the end of the year, just based on the surprise that it gave me. I never expected this book to be so interesting and so dazzling and so expertly crafted. The next book that I completed was the short story collection By Light We Knew Our Names by Anne Valente. This book had been recommended by Mercedes from Mercy's Bookish Musings 1,000 years ago, and I only just now read it, and I really, really enjoyed it. Like, of course, as with every other short story collection, some stories were much better than the others, but still, just regardless of that, I thought this was a stellar collection. Just exactly the right amount of stories, and each story was a perfect length. Like, none of the stories were like super long or super short. It was just the right amount. Magical realism, sort of surreal stories, whimsical stories, but with a lot of emotional truth. I gave this book 4 stars. Then I read The Remains of the Day by Kazuo Ishiguro. This is the story of a man's life. Again, something that I love. It's this man who is a butler in the English country house, like in a big English house, like it's a big deal. And he's sort of taking a break and looking back, reminiscing about his life way back in the day when he was serving Lord blah blah blah. And what's not to like? This book sounded exactly like my cup of tea, of English Earl Grey tea that I love. I love Earl Grey tea. I drink it every day. And it did not work out for me. Oh, this book was so frustrating. It was infuriating, which is weird. It's weird because the writing itself is so beautiful. It's so precious, but it just goes around in circles, going nowhere, which you could argue is the point of the writing. It's the point of what the author is trying to do, probably, but I just never really found a lot of substance here. It actually made me think of a better novel, in my opinion, that does the same thing or a very similar thing, which is Julian Barnes's The Sense of an Ending, I think it's the title. It sort of made me think of that book, but that book was so incredible and I loved it to pieces. The Remains of the Day was really not my cup of tea. The writing was so tedious. I think Kazuo Ishiguro expertly captures what we in psychoanalysis call reaction formation, which is an anal defense mechanism that is employed by obsessive, sometimes depressive patients, some schizoid people sometimes. Anyway, this book is a masterclass on anal English character, Anish, that's a word, anal English sort of way of conducting things and doing business and just behaving. And it's so infuriating because I think the book is actually filled with anger, and we get to see how this character, this butler character, bottles everything up inside, and it's a book about containment, I think. So in a way, even though I didn't enjoy the book by any means, it was so unnecessarily detailed and boring and really going nowhere, just absolutely going nowhere. Even though I didn't enjoy it, it's a book that made me think, and it's a book that I think is very consistent in terms of the writing and the themes and the style and the character. So it's a great novel. I just didn't like it. I gave it, I think, 2 stars or maybe 1 star, 1.5 star. I don't know. It's very hard for me to rate books that objectively are sort of perfect, but I just didn't really like them at all. Then I read a nonfiction book, The Glucose Revolution. This is a Spanish copy. The Glucose Revolution by Jesse Inchauspé. And yeah, I love this kind of nonfiction. It's, it is what it is. If you know, you know. It's a book about, our glucose and all of the spikes that happen with insulin and sugar in our bodies. And, I love that kind of thing. You could argue that it's because I've been on a diet since I was like 7 years old, which is not healthy, but that's just the way that, it happened to me. I was a very overweight person for my entire life, and therefore I just really enjoy reading up on the subject of dieting and just learning about the chemistry of our bodies and all of that. Yeah, so I really enjoyed it. It was great. It was funny. It was very well explained to a general population audience, and I gave it 4 stars. What's not to like? And finally, the last book that I completed in August was Tender is the Flesh, or its original title, as you can see here, Cadáver Exquisito. This is a novel, a very short novel. Again, short novels, yay! Written by Argentinian author Agustina Basterrica. And this is a very dark, interesting, fun novel. It's about cannibalism. It's a dystopian future where animals have all died. They've all completely gone. Well, most of them are gone. So humankind has to resort to cannibalism in order to, get the pleasure. Not even the nutritional requirements, but really it's more about the act of consuming another living thing and the flesh and the meat and all of that. So I think this is a novel that you could read and interpret from many different ways, like, of course, vegetarianism and veganism and all of these things, veganism. But I just really, really enjoyed reading it. Many people say that it's so gruesome and so horrifying, like they had to turn away in hysteria from the page. I didn't really find that, just because I really like reading crude, horrible things. So I enjoyed that aspect of it. I thought it was well done. Like, some of the scenes, some of the imagery were really horrifying and brutal, because they just sort of gave you enough information to picture horrible, horrific things. But it was also great because the author sort of withheld some information, and so you had to picture a lot of things that were not on the page specified. And I think good horror as a genre always does that, right? So I think this was a fun, interesting read. I don't think it's as great as everyone claims it to be. I thought it was very, very good. To me, this is like a 3.5 star book. It's good. The ending was so predictable, and so yeah, even though the ending is pretty good and pretty inevitable and consistent with everything else that is going on, I still found myself a little underwhelmed by some aspects of this book. There are some things that I wish could have been expanded upon, actually. But yeah, overall, this was short. It was great for what it was. And I would recommend it to people who don't shy away in hysterics from reading this kind of horrific thing. It was good. It was good. So those are the books that I read in August. I cannot wait to see you next time, because I have some interesting books to share that I am currently reading and going to be reading in September. Anyway, thanks for watching. My name is Juan. I am Just One Reader, your favorite Mexican booktuber. I will see you on the next video. Bye-bye.